My name is Naomi Westervelt. I'm 32 years old, and before 3 nights ago, I would have sworn my life was stable enough to predict. Not perfect, not glamorous, not anything worth broadcasting, but solid. I had a job I liked, a small but cozy apartment, and a boyfriend I believed I understood. His name is Mason Hale, and for the past year, he has been deeply, obsessively invested in his lifestyle influencer journey. What started as harmless self-help content and daily vlogs somehow transformed into curated confessionals, reaction reels, relationship advice, and the kind of soft focus authenticity that doesn't survive even a single unfiltered second in real life. I supported him at first. I won't pretend otherwise. I held ring lights for him, pretended to laugh at stories he exaggerated for effect, acted as the supportive girlfriend who avoids the spotlight. That was his label for me. Never my choice. But then his audience began growing slowly but consistently until he had nearly 5,000 followers who treated him like some kind of relationship sage. He started calling himself a financial minimalist, a self-care advocate, a person who believed in radically honest living. I never imagined how far he'd go to protect that image. The first sign something was wrong happened 3 weeks ago, though I didn't know it yet. I had been searching for my portable charger in the home office desk and instead found a stack of old envelopes shoved far behind a drawer. I assumed they were junk mail at first, but curiosity made me pull them out. What I discovered were credit card statements, multiple ones, all in Mason's name, all showing balances I had never seen before on cards I didn't recognize. And the charges: online casinos, betting apps, fantasy league buy-ins, thousands upon thousands in neon red transactions. I stood there in the dim office light, with the papers trembling in my hands, wondering how the man who lectured strangers about intentional budgeting and financial discipline was secretly gambling away sums that could have changed both our lives. I took photos of everything not out of spite, but because I didn't know what to do. I needed time, space, a plan. And maybe the courage to confront the truth. Mason had a problem he wasn't admitting to anyone, not even himself. I didn't expect the confrontation to happen the way it did. That Tuesday night, I came home from work at exactly 7. I remember the time because I had texted Mason earlier reminding him we needed to talk about rent. Our landlord had messaged me that morning rent was due on the 1st. It was the 5th. My half had already been sent. His half hadn't. But when I walked in, I didn't find him paying bills or reviewing finances. I found him adjusting a ring light in the living room camera set up on the coffee table face. Already practiced into that soft, serious influencer expression he spent too much time perfecting. "Hey," I said as I dropped my bag on the kitchen counter. "Can we talk about rent for a second?" He didn't answer, not even a glance. Mason. Nothing. Annoyance crept in, but I tried again, firmer this time. "The landlord texted me today. Rent is late. What's going on with your half?" Still no answer. Instead, he angled the camera upward slightly, testing how the shadows fell across his jawline. Only when I stepped closer did he turn, and that's when I saw the small red dot glowing on his phone screen. He was streaming. I frowned, thrown off. "Are you recording something?" He tilted the phone toward me, eyes bright with something that made my stomach twist. "Say that again," he said with a tiny, chilling smile. "Tell everyone how you rushed in here to interrogate me about money the second you walked through the door." I stared at him in disbelief. "Mason, are you live streaming this right now?" "My followers deserve transparency," he replied, turning slightly to frame both of us. "They deserve to see the real Naomi, the controlling, financially obsessive girlfriend who treats me like a delinquent if I'm 5 seconds late on anything." My mouth fell open. "What are you talking about?" "We split everything 50-50. I'm literally asking why rent hasn't been paid." He rolled his eyes dramatically toward the camera, not toward me. "See? She doesn't hear herself. It's exhausting." I could see comments appearing on his screen. Little hearts, red flags, people typing things like "girl run," "he deserves space," and "financial abuse is real." The worst part wasn't the comments. It was the way Mason fed into them, nodding along, soaking in the validation like sunlight. Something inside me steadied, then not anger, but clarity. He had humiliated me publicly without warning, and all while hiding a secret that dwarfed anything he was accusing me of. I took a slow breath. "You know what, Mason," I said. "Keep filming." His eyebrows lifted, confused but intrigued. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the folder of photographed statements, and tapped Share to Device. Our smart TV flickered, then lit up with the first image: Mason Hale. March statement. $3 and $285 in online gambling charges. His face drained of color. "What are you doing?" he demanded, stepping in front of the TV, but I angled myself so the camera could see around him. "You want transparency," I said, voice steady. "Let's give your followers context." April's statement appeared $2,800, then May over $4,000. The chat exploded. People asking questions, people accusing him, people dropping stunned emojis faster than I could process. Mason scrambled for the remote, then for my phone, then for anything he could grab to stop the truth from filling the room. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't move. I just watched as his carefully curated persona cracked apart on camera. "Turn it off," he shouted. "Naomi, stop. You're ruining everything." "I'm ruining it," I asked quietly. "You spent our rent money. You hid thousands of dollars in gambling debt. You weaponized your platform to lie about me. Mason, all I'm doing is showing the truth." He finally managed to end the stream, but by then it didn't matter. The damage was already done. He stood there breathing hard, chest rising and falling in uneven jolts, eyes full of panic. "How long have you known?" he whispered. 3 weeks, I said. "I found the statements by accident, and I was trying to figure out how to help you, Mason. I was researching addiction counseling. I was trying to approach you gently, but you decided to humiliate me online instead." That was the moment a strange quiet fell over the room, the moment both of us realized the line he had crossed wasn't one he could step back over. 30 minutes later, I packed a small bag. Mason kept pleading, alternating between apologies and accusations, but I didn't respond. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and left him standing alone with the remnants of his shattered audience. I needed to think. I needed air. And I needed to understand how everything I believed about my life had been rewritten in a single brutal night. By the next morning, everything that happened in my living room had already slipped beyond my control. I woke up in the small hotel room I'd rented, just a quiet place with a stiff mattress and a bedside lamp that flickered whenever I turned it on. I hadn't planned to stay there more than a night, but the notifications on my phone told me my plans would have to change. The first message was from a coworker. "Naomi, is everything okay? I think I just saw Mason trending." I blinked at the screen, still groggy. Then came another message, this time from my cousin. "Girl, the internet is on fire." Confused, I opened one of the links they'd sent me. A stranger's TikTok appeared, someone I didn't know, someone who lived nowhere near me, introducing a video with the caption, "When the financial wellness guru gets exposed live by his own girlfriend." Then I saw it, my living room, my TV screen, Mason's handwriting, and his voice shaky, trying to hide the panic as gambling charges flashed behind him. Someone had screen recorded the entire stream, multiple someones apparently. I clicked the next link, another clip, thousands of comments, people stitching the video with their reactions, a man laughing so hard he wheezed, a woman covering her mouth in shock, a couple pausing frame by frame to analyze Mason's face when he realized the truth was out. One video already had over 180,000 views. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the cheap blanket pooling around my knees. I felt nothing at first, just numbness, like my brain couldn't decide whether to panic, cry, or scream. It wasn't until I saw Mason's face on a third video blown up huge behind commentary text that something in me twisted. He wasn't the man I knew. He was a character now, a cautionary tale, a meme. And because he had dragged me into it, I was part of the story too. Not by choice. I closed my phone, pressing it against my chest for a moment before forcing myself to stand. I showered, dressed, tied my hair back, and went to work because life doesn't stop just because your private world has exploded publicly. But when I walked into the office, several people avoided eye contact. A few whispered, and one overly nosy coworker approached me with fake sympathy. "I'm so sorry," she said, exaggerating the softness in her voice. That must have been so humiliating. Humiliating wasn't the word. Violating felt closer, terrifying too, but also liberating in some strange way. At least there were receipts now, literal and digital. At least I wasn't the villain Mason tried to paint me as. During lunch break, my phone buzzed with a message from him. "We need to talk, seriously. Please come home." I ignored it. 5 minutes later, another message. "Everyone's attacking me. You did this. You owe me a chance to fix it." I turned off my notifications. If I had left them on a moment longer, I would have seen the next 10 messages and the 10 after that. By the time my shift ended, I felt wrung out. My head throbbed. My jaw ached from clenching it. And when I stepped outside into the cool evening air, I didn't even see Mason until I heard his voice. "Naomi, I froze. He was leaning against the wall beside the coffee shop across the street from my office. Hood pulled over his cap, anxiety written all over his face. He looked like he hadn't slept, or maybe like he had spent the entire day watching himself become the internet's latest spectacle. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Face to face, please." Every instinct in me said to walk away, but I hesitated just long enough for him to see it. He gestured toward the coffee shop behind him. "I booked us a table. Just 10 minutes, I swear. No cameras, no streaming, no phone out." Reluctantly, I followed him inside. The first thing I noticed was the notebook on the table open, screen-lit, filled with bullet points. Talking points. His talking points. He cleared his throat, shifting nervously as we sat down. "I want to acknowledge," he began reading from the screen, "that I have a problem. I've been struggling with compulsive gambling and I haven't been honest about it." I stared at him, unimpressed but silent. "Okay," he continued. "Second, I feel like we both contributed to the situation. Your controlling behavior around money made me feel like I had to hide things." My mouth opened, not in shock, but in disbelief. I let out a short laugh, humorless and sharp. "Are you blaming me?" I said slowly, "for your gambling addiction?" "No," he insisted. "I'm just saying that your intensity around finances—" "We split bills 50-50, I snapped. "You gambled away your half of the rent. You've been lying for months, and somehow this is my fault." "You're twisting my words." "I'm repeating your words." He slammed his notebook shut, frustrated. This isn't how I wanted the conversation to go. I leaned back in my chair, the exhaustion of the last 48 hours weighing on me. "Well, maybe you should have started by not live streaming our argument." He winced at that. "I was overwhelmed," he murmured. "I was angry. I wasn't thinking straight." "But Naomi, you exposing me like that—" "You exposed yourself," I cut in. "I simply refused to play along." He put his head in his hands for a moment, then looked up at me with a kind of raw desperation. "I need you," he whispered. "I need your support. I need you to have my back." "For what?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Your followers, your brand, your lies." "For us," he insisted. "For our relationship." I stared at him for a long moment. "Mason," I said softly, "you tried to destroy my reputation to protect your image. And the moment the truth came out, you blamed me for it." He flinched as though I'd hit him. "I can get help," he said. "I can fix this. Just don't tell anyone else. Don't let this ruin me." "You already told 5,000 people," I replied. "They watched you try to manipulate me in real time. And then they watched the truth." He reached for my hand, but I pulled mine back. "I'm begging you, Naomi," he said. "Please, please don't give up on me." I didn't respond. I stood, grabbed my purse, and walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. He posted about it later, of course, some vague story about how his girlfriend abandoned him during a mental health crisis. Another chunk of followers slipped away, disgusted by the manipulation. Meanwhile, I checked into the hotel for another night. Maybe 2, maybe more. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I let myself feel everything: grief, anger, exhaustion, and something deeper, quieter, and harder to admit. Relief? Because the truth wasn't just out there anymore. It was finally out of me. The third day after the live stream was when things shifted from public humiliation to something darker, more unsettling. Up until then, I had assumed the fallout would remain mostly online. A storm of strangers dissecting our relationship. Mason scrambling to control the narrative, and me quietly piecing myself together in a hotel room that smelled faintly of stale air and industrial detergent. But real life has a way of intruding when you least expect it. It started with the messages. Not from Mason this time, but from his mother. The first call came at 7 in the morning. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway, her voice sharp with accusation. "Do you have any idea what you've done to my son? He's devastated, Naomi. Humiliated. And you're just hiding in some hotel while he suffers. You should be ashamed." I listened without emotion, then deleted it. The second call came half an hour later. The third came an hour after that. By noon, she had found my hotel's front desk number and left a message there too. I blocked her number. I told myself the situation was under control. Mason's family had always been protective, sometimes to the point of blindness. They knew how to close ranks around him, especially when he was in the wrong. But I didn't expect what came next. That evening, after a long day at work, trying to pretend my life wasn't unraveling, I returned to the hotel with takeout and the dull headache that had become a constant companion. I was unlocking the door to my room when I heard someone shout my name. "Naomi." I turned startled. Mason's older brother Evan was walking down the hallway toward me, the kind of purposeful stride that made my pulse spike. "How did you even find this place?" I demanded, already stepping back. He didn't answer. Instead, he stopped a few feet in front of me and glared. with a fury I hadn't expected. "We need to talk about what you did to Mason." What I did, I echoed. He live-streamed our argument. He lied to thousands of people. He gambled away the rent. "Evan, if you watch the video—" "I watched it," he snapped. "And I saw you humiliate him publicly. Do you have any idea what that's done to his mental state?" I stared at him stunned. He humiliated himself. I just showed the truth. "You blindsided him," Evan said, taking a step closer. "You didn't even try to help him privately first. You betrayed him." I laughed bitterly. I spent 3 weeks trying to figure out how to help him. He ambushed me on camera. I reacted. He leaned in, lowering his voice. "You need to fix this." "No," I said firmly. "I don't." His jaw clenched, and he took another aggressive step forward. That was enough. I retreated into my room quickly and shut the door. His palm slammed against it. "Naomi," he shouted. I locked the deadbolt with shaking hands and immediately called the front desk. Hotel security came within minutes, escorting him out while he yelled threats down the hallway. It was only after he was gone that my breath returned fully to my lungs. I sent a brief email to my lawyer, one I hadn't planned to hire until the live stream. But the events unfolding made it clear I couldn't navigate this alone. By morning, I had a consultation appointment. My lawyer's first words after hearing the story were blunt. "You need to protect yourself." That day, I made a decision I had been avoiding. Since the moment the credit card statements first appeared in Mason's drawer, I texted him requesting to meet. No cameras, no audience, no manipulation. When I arrived at our apartment that evening, the lights were already on. Mason was sitting on the couch, shoulders slumped, eyes swollen. His best friend Brandon sat beside him, arms crossed, an expression full of judgment. Judgment aimed squarely at me. "Can we talk alone?" I asked. Brandon scoffed. "I'm here for support," he said. "You're not going to twist things again." "Mason," I said, ignoring Brandon entirely. Mason wiped his face with his sleeve. "It's fine." "Brandon, can you wait in the bedroom?" Brandon shot me a glare, but obeyed, disappearing behind the door while muttering something under his breath. I stayed standing. Distance felt safer. "Mason," I began, steadying my voice. "I'm filing for separation." He stared at me as if I had spoken in another language. "What?" "I'm ending this. Us. Our relationship." "You're just giving up?" he asked, eyes red and shining. "After everything. After what we built." "What did we build?" I asked quietly. "A relationship where you lied for months. Where you used your platform to paint me as controlling Mason. You didn't even hesitate before turning the camera on me." He shook his head, breath catching. "It was one mistake. One moment of weakness." "It wasn't one mistake," I said. "It was months of deception. And then the live stream." His voice rose, cracking. "You're abandoning me. Just like my dad. Just like everyone else in my life." "Stop," I said sharply. "Don't twist this into something it's not. I'm leaving because you violated my trust." He stared at me in silence for a long moment before whispering, "I won't survive this without you." "You need a therapist," I replied gently. "Not me." That was when all the softness in him disappeared. His expression hardened, jaw tightening, as anger replaced helplessness. "You'll regret this," he said. "I swear, Naomi, you'll regret walking away." I didn't respond. I collected the clothes I needed, took photos of the apartment for documentation, and left. As I drove back to the hotel, my phone buzzed. Repeatedly, texts from Mason, from his mother, from his brother's unknown number from an account I didn't recognize but assumed was one of his friends. The messages ranged from pleas to threats to guilt trips. When I arrived at the hotel and finally checked my bank account, my heart dropped. The joint checking account meant only for shared expenses was empty. Every last dollar, my half of the rent, what was left of his, all of it. He had withdrawn everything. My stomach twisted with nausea. I immediately checked my credit report. One entry made me freeze. Credit card application in my name denied. He had tried to open credit using my identity. That was the moment something inside me hardened permanently. I called the police. Identity theft, even attempted, was a crime. The officer who took my statement had already seen the viral video. His sympathy made the process easier. By the time I hung up, a case number had been issued. 2 hours later, Mason called in a panic. "You called the cops on me," he shouted. "You tried to steal my identity," I said calmly. "So yes." "You don't understand. I was desperate." "That's not my responsibility anymore," I said. "We're done. We've been done." He made a broken, strangled noise. "I hate you," he said finally, voice shaking. "I hate what you did to me." "You did it to yourself," I replied, and ended the call. Then I blocked his number. Should have done it days earlier. The weeks after filing the police report blurred into a strange mixture of quiet routine and simmering chaos. On the surface, my life settled into an unexpected calm hotel nights that were lonely but peaceful mornings, where I didn't have to brace myself for Mason's mood shifts, and days where the noise of my job became a welcome distraction rather than an interruption. But beneath that shallow calm, everything else was falling apart. Not for me, for him. It started small, a few followers dropping off, a couple of unsubscribes, but Mason was obsessed with numbers. Watching them dip, even by a few dozen, sent him spiraling. That first week after the live stream, he posted 3 apology videos, each one worse than the last. The first was defensive, the second was rambling, and the third was clearly rehearsed, yet somehow made him look more guilty. He blamed stress. He blamed gambling addiction. He blamed miscommunication in the relationship. He blamed me, though he did it subtly, framing himself as a man pushed to the edge by a partner who didn't believe in him. The internet didn't buy it. Comments poured in not from trolls, but from former fans who felt deceived. People dug deeper into his old videos, pointing out inconsistencies in his minimalist budget tips and money hacks. Screenshots circulated showing him recommending financial discipline, while as one commenter phrased it, losing rent money to digital slot machines. One evening, as I sat in my hotel room reviewing work emails, a viral thread appeared on Twitter. The rise and fall of Mason Hale, a cautionary tale. Dozens of screenshots, clips from his live stream, side-by-side comparison of his statements versus actual charges, even a stitched video from a former ex-girlfriend confirming Mason had a long history of irresponsible spending and emotional manipulation. She'd kept quiet before, but the live stream emboldened her to speak. Her name was Sabrina, the ex I'd always sensed tension around. In her video, she never mentioned me directly, but her words hit hard. I stayed quiet for years, but seeing what Naomi went through, I recognized that pattern. He lies to protect his image. He blames his partner for everything, and when people stop believing him, he becomes desperate. Her video went viral too. I watched it with a sinking feeling, not anger, but recognition. A validation of everything I had been trying to untangle alone. Meanwhile, Mason's attempts at damage control worsened by the day. He posted an emotional clip from his car, red-eyed and shaky, talking about how he was abandoned by the person he trusted most. The comments shredded him. A few examples. Bro, she didn't abandon you. You tried to frame her on livestream. Imagine gambling away rent money and then crying for sympathy. If you're struggling with addiction, get help. Don't manipulate your girlfriend. His follower count dropped from 5,000 to 3,000, then to 2,000 within a week. Sponsorship offers dried up. A skincare brand unfollowed him publicly, which people screenshotted gleefully. Still, Mason clung to the narrative that he was the victim. And then came discovery. Because separation, especially when joint finances are involved, meant lawyers' documents and the kind of brutal sunlight Mason wasn't prepared for. My lawyer assembled the photo evidence I had collected, the police report, text messages, screenshots of his live stream, the footage of his brother confronting me at the hotel. Mason's lawyer emailed my lawyer a 12-page argument accusing me of emotional cruelty and intentional sabotage of Mason's public persona. My lawyer laughed so hard when he read it that he actually had to step out of his office for a moment. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what discovery uncovered on Mason's end. He didn't owe just the $80,000 I'd discovered in statements. He owed $45,000 across multiple undisclosed credit cards, 2 personal loans, and unbelievably a payday loan with a double-digit interest rate that made my skin crawl just looking at it. He had been hiding it for years, juggling debt with credit sinking deeper until he had started pulling from our joint account, because there was nowhere left to pull from. When my lawyer summarized it all, I felt physically sick. This, he said gently, is what happens when someone is drowning and pretending they're not. But the worst part wasn't the debt. It was the lengths Mason had gone to hide it, the identity theft attempt, the withdrawals, the smear posts, the live stream manipulation. When I left the lawyer's office, a kind of solemn clarity settled over me. Whatever hope I'd once had for reconciliation, however small, evaporated. There was no going back. And Mason must have realized it too, because that's when the harassment escalated. First came the flurry of texts from random burner numbers, some pleading, some accusing, some threatening. My lawyer had warned me this might happen. I blocked each number as it appeared. Then his best friend Brandon sent me a long message lecturing me on betraying Mason in his darkest hour. I didn't respond. After that, Mason's mother called my workplace, and demanded to speak to HR, claiming I had emotionally abused her son. Thankfully, HR immediately notified me and dismissed the call. But the worst moment was the so-called intervention. It was orchestrated by Mason, no doubt, inspired by the kind of dramatic content he once admired from other influencers. He invited my parents, my sister, his entire family, and several of his close friends to a meeting at his mother's house. He sent everyone long, emotional messages about how Naomi needs help understanding her role in our relationship problems. I ignored the invite. I had no interest in being ambushed. My parents, however, decided to go wanting to hear both sides, as they put it. They returned furious. It was a circus, my mother said. Every one of them had rehearsed lines about how you drove Mason to desperation. They showed these curated clips of him crying on camera, like they were presenting evidence in a trial. What did you say? I asked. I asked to see the full live stream, she replied, not the edited parts, just the whole thing. Funny how suddenly nobody wanted to show it. My father was more direct. He had sent Mason a single text afterward. Get the help you need. Leave my daughter alone. Mason responded publicly, of course. He posted a tearful video about how my family was enabling abuse and gaslighting him. That video lost him another 600 followers. Meanwhile, the apartment situation resolved itself without my involvement. Our landlord had seen the viral video too. When I explained everything, he released me from the lease without penalty. 2 weeks later, Mason was evicted after failing to pay rent. His mother posted a passive-aggressive status online blaming me for abandoning him at his lowest point. Her friends commented prayers and sympathy emojis. But the truth was simple. Mason had been unraveling long before I ever found those credit card statements. I had just been too close and too hopeful to see it. By the end of the 4th week, I began attending a support group on Wednesday nights. At first, I was hesitant, expecting theatrics or cliches, but what I found instead were people who understood the private hell of being manipulated, blamed, and emotionally drained by someone you love. One woman said something that has stayed with me. Sometimes the person you're protecting is the one burning your house down. The room went quiet. My chest ached because it felt too real. Every Wednesday, I stayed a little longer. I listened. I learned. And slowly, a new version of myself began to form, a version no longer defined by Mason's chaos. A version that finally understood the difference between love and attachment, and the difference between guilt and responsibility. By the time 2 months had passed since the live stream, the chaos had settled into something quieter, almost eerie, like the aftermath of a storm where debris still litters the shoreline, but the sky looks deceptively calm. My life hadn't magically transformed, but it had finally become my own again. I woke up without dread. I went to sleep without bracing myself for an argument. I worked cooked, simple dinners and began to feel a slow, steady familiarity in my new one-bedroom apartment, a space untouched by Mason's spiraling lies. The separation process moved forward with its usual sluggishness, lawyers, paperwork, deadlines. Mason had initially demanded support then, alimony arguing that I damaged his earning potential by exposing the gambling. Once discovery revealed the extent of his financial mess, the alimony demand dissolved almost immediately. His lawyer must have known they had no case. They quietly withdrew the request before my lawyer even had the joy of rejecting it. Meanwhile, Mason's debt, over $45,000 in total, hung around his neck, like a weight he could no longer hide behind charisma or camera tricks. The identity theft attempt was documented. He hadn't been charged. It turns out my lawyer was right, that pushing for charges would have made the process even uglier, but the incident was included in the legal filings. It was impossible for Mason to frame himself as the victim while evidence piled up against him. His life, once polished and glossy online, continued to crumble in very public ways. His influencer brand didn't survive. His follower count nosedived to under 1,000, most of them rubberneckers, who stuck around not for support, but for entertainment. His attempt at rebranding as a recovery influencer felt forced and hollow. He filmed himself journaling, attending an online support group, sharing vague messages about accountability that never directly addressed his gambling or the live stream. People weren't fooled. Comment sections filled with skepticism. This feels like a publicity stunt. Why won't you actually admit what you did? Your ex handled this better than you ever did. Every time I saw those comments, I felt conflicted, not triumphant, just tired. Eventually, he disappeared from social media entirely. His last post was a blurred, cryptic quote about starting over. When 2 weeks passed without anything new, people lost interest. The internet moved on. My life didn't. In quiet moments, I still felt the echo of the chaos he brought. The hotel room nights, the fear when Evan confronted me, the frantic checking of bank accounts, the weeks of being watched online by strangers analyzing every gesture from the clip. Healing wasn't instant, it wasn't clean, but it was happening. One of the turning points came during a Wednesday evening support group. A new member, an older man with gentle eyes and deep lines of exhaustion around them, said something that settled inside me like a truth I had been waiting to articulate. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you decide to keep. I wrote that down in my journal and underlined it twice. The apartment I eventually moved into was small, a cozy corner unit with a single balcony that overlooked a row of maple trees. The first night I slept there alone but peaceful, I realized I hadn't heard a ring light buzzing or a phone notification echoing across a room in weeks. The silence was not loneliness, it was a gift. I began cooking again, reading again, sitting on my balcony with tea and letting the leaves rustle the tension out of my shoulders. I rewatched my favorite childhood movies without Mason judging them for not being on brand. I bought myself a small print from a local artist, a watercolor of a woman standing at the edge of a cliff, arms open to the ocean wind. When I hung it on my wall, I cried, not from sadness, from release. As the legal process edged closer to being finalized, Mason's family attempted one last push. His mother sent a long, unhinged email to my lawyer accusing me of ruining Mason's life, framing him manipulating evidence and driving him to emotional collapse. My lawyer forwarded it to me with a single line, "For your records, do not respond." I didn't. My parents, who had been shaken by the intervention fiasco, became my anchors. My mother took me out to lunch every Sunday. My father dropped by with groceries or random housewarming gifts I didn't ask for but appreciated anyway. They never pressed, never lectured. They just showed up. It reminded me that not every family reacts to conflict with theatrics. Some simply hold space until you can stand again. About 7 weeks after the live stream, I got a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but intuition made me pause. It was from Mason. "I'm doing better now. I'm in GA meetings. I'm working on myself. I know we're done, but I wanted you to know I'm getting help. No accusations, no manipulation, no guilt tripping. Just a message." I stared at my phone for a long moment. My instinct was to feel something profound: sadness, relief, anger, pity. Instead, I felt simply still. That evening during therapy, I mentioned the message. My therapist listened carefully, then asked, "How does it make you feel?" "Tired," I said honestly. "Just tired." "Do you want to respond?" What would I even say, I asked, staring at the soft lamplight in her office. "Good for you. I'm glad you're getting help. None of that changes what happened." She nodded gently. "Then don't respond. You don't owe him anything." So I didn't. I deleted the message, blocked the number, and let the silence expand between us once and for all. The final legal steps were messy but swift. We divided the small amount of shared furniture. He wanted the TV. The irony of that wasn't lost on me, but I kept it because I could. The judge approved the separation agreement. The financial filings were finalized. I walked out of the courthouse with a manila folder and a feeling I hadn't expected. Lightness. Real honest lightness. That night, I sat on my balcony with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the lights flicker in distant apartment windows. Somewhere far across the city, Mason was dealing with the consequences of his own choices. And for the first time since the live stream, I didn't feel intertwined with his story anymore. I didn't feel responsible for his downfall. He chose the narrative. He chose the lies. He chose the gamble financially and emotionally. All I did was stop playing the part he wrote for me. I breathed in the cool night air,